All right, guys, I'll go ahead and kick it off. So, guys, I'm Troy Murraw. I'm with Carahsoft Technology, and for those who don't know who Carahsoft is, we are a public sector distributor / master aggregator, and we are a partner with Thales TCT, supporting them in the federal space. So we hold a lot of different contracting vehicles for them in the federal space and helping them on the marketing and sales side. So quick shout out, Thales, great job setting this up. Allison, this is beautiful. And my marketing team, Shannon and Abby, appreciate everything you guys do on putting this all together. So for the next panel discussion, we have Cheri Pascoe, who is the director of NIST, National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. She provides strategic direction and technical leadership for the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, aligns with the National Cybersecurity of Excellence work with the industry and government and the NIST priorities, and builds relationships with key stakeholders. Prior to her role as the director of the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, she served as the Senior Technology Policy Advisor, advising NIST leadership on technology policy, strategy, and including cybersecurity, privacy, and artificial intelligence. She also led NIST's Cybersecurity Framework Program and was a member of the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. Prior to joining NIST in 2021, she served more than a decade in the staff leadership roles on the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. Most recently, she served as the Deputy Policy Director managing the committee's Space and Science Subcommittee, which has jurisdiction over science, technology, standards, and the civil space policy. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to share with all of you the great work that happens at the NCCoE. I've been pretty actively involved there off and on, well, a lot for the past 2 years, but before that on another project. And I just think there's a lot of great work that's done there that I thought it'd be good to elevate the attention and the conversation around the NCCoE and get more people involved. So Thales TCT, we've been a long-standing member of the National Cybersecurity Excellence Partnership, the NCCEP program. It's an ongoing collaboration partnership between U.S. companies and NIST NCCoE. My first experience with the NCCoE, I was on the Gemalto commercial side at the time, not federal. And one of our technology partners reached out to us. They were involved in a trusted cloud project at NCCoE, and they needed our HSM as a root of trust. So we kind of came in a little bit late into the project, but still, were able to be very actively involved in the project from that point on to its completion. And it fosters a lot of collaboration between industry and government, and I just really enjoy, working with folks there. Cheri, can you start by giving us a little background about the NCCoE's mission and vision?
Yeah, thanks, Gina. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so glad that we can do this together because it's really highlighting, the importance of collaboration with industry, with our partners at NIST and NCCoE. And plus, I'm also really excited, Gina and I talked about this before, but this is my first fireside chat where there's actually been a fire. Gina's idea. It's brilliant. It just shows how much we rely on her brilliance at the NCCoE. But the NCCoE, we are an applied cybersecurity research laboratory within NIST. We were founded about 10 years ago. We also operate the nation's cybersecurity FFRDC that's run by MITRE. So it's a nice collaboration between the federal experts at NIST. We add contractors from MITRE, and then we add, for every project that we do, we add expertise from industry, other governments, and academia. Our mission is to really help organizations to leverage standards. Right at NIST, we care a lot about standards. We write standards, we do underlying research to help advance international standards, but there's so many standards out there. There's also a tremendous amount of commercial technologies that organizations can leverage to help address their cybersecurity challenges. So the NCCoE was built to kind of serve as a collaborative hub where we're working with organizations around the world to help implement standards and show how organizations can use kind of off-the-shelf commercial technologies to be able to implement standards to address their specific cybersecurity challenges. So we'll talk a little bit more about, some of the specific projects, but we have about 35, 40 projects that we're currently running at the center. Each one of those is built around a consortia, a team of experts that's working together to address a specific cybersecurity challenge. We never work with one vendor alone. We always work with more than 5, sometimes 25 vendors at a time, really working on challenges that no one company can solve. We really work together to try to bridge the expertise across the community. So an example of some of our work is we have a project right now on implementing zero trust architecture. We have a consortia of 24 vendors. We've built now 14 different example zero trust architectures in our lab using the various products from those vendors, really all built around implementing and showing how to implement NIST 800-207, so the foundational principles for zero trust, really trying to make this real, showing how it can be done, working through some of the challenges that come up when we're doing this implementation, and then providing out guidance to the broader community on what we've learned, what worked, what didn't work, so that others can kind of shortcut some of the research that you have to do when you're trying to implement some of these same standards.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right. There are a lot of artifacts that came out of that project, which normally you only see 3 or 4, but it's quite extensive and very detailed. Why is collaboration in cybersecurity so important, and how does the collaboration work at the NCCoE? You talked a little bit about it, but kind of go a little bit deeper from that perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk to it from my
yeah,
perspective.
I mean,
too.
I want to hear what, how it's beneficial to you and your participation. I'll just say, briefly that cybersecurity is a significant challenge for everyone, and we're really blessed to be able to work with so many different organizations that want to kind of work in a community to address these specific cybersecurity challenges. Since the start of the center, we've now signed more than 200 CRADAs, legal R&D agreements with technology vendors. We've signed 25 interagency agreements with other federal agencies. And all of this collaboration is working. It's not just, we don't just sit around and talk about things, right? We're in a lab, we're working with hardware, software, services, we're leveraging the expertise of all of these organizations to work together on a project. And I think the other thing that I'll point out is we do not ourselves define what the challenge is, right? We try to work with the community. We've got several dozen communities of interest that meet regularly to talk about challenges within a specific sector, within a specific technology. And though that is where, we really get a lot of our new project ideas for new challenges that we want to spin up and then work with the community again to address it. But Gina, I want to hear from you about, how it's been going for you working with the center and some of the benefits and challenges that you've seen.
First of all, we learn oftentimes about the projects because they are posted on the National Federal Register. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then we evaluate what those projects are, and if we feel like we have technology that could benefit from it, and we submit a letter of interest for participating in the project. And then once we do that, then there's a vetting process that goes on with the team at the NCCoE where we present our solutions, and then they determine yes, you're a good fit for the project. From the collaboration perspective, a big part of what we do at Thales TCT is our technology partner ecosystem, right? Because HSMs by themselves, I always say they're really a boat anchor, right? As they stand alone with nothing integrated with them, they're just a black box. What gives them their value is what our technology partners leverage the capability of the HSM to make a stronger solution. And so that's the beauty of the collaboration of NCCoE, is to continue that work with our technology partners to strengthen the solutions that we have and they have collectively. And part of the nature of our business is sometimes with some of our products we partner and sometimes we compete. So we may partner from an HSM perspective, but we may compete from a key management perspective. So the neat thing about NCCoE is it's a safe space for collaboration, even though you may be in competition with people. An example of that is the migration to post-quantum crypto, a project that we're involved in right now. There are multiple HSM vendors participating in that project, and we're all working together to test the interoperability and performance of our HSMs with the new PQC algorithms. And the artifacts from that were collected and put into one of the volumes of the documentation that were posted in draft. So that's kind of the neat things about it, is it fosters collaboration, whether you are already partnering or you compete or you establish new partnerships, which is pretty neat, because sometimes trying to get somebody to say they want to integrate with you, but then trying to logistically figure that out doesn't happen. But it does happen at the center because you're all there collectively working on the greater good to solve a hard problem.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear, from some of our partners, we hear about the product improvements that they're going to be making to their products based off of what they've learned, in our lab, the new partnerships that they might have stood up. It's really great to see, different companies working together to solve, one particular challenge. And it's also great for us, right? Because at NIST, we have limited resources, we have a limited number of staff. My team, they are experts. They're some of the world's best experts in standards and technology. But for every one of our projects, right, we're able to take 1 or 2 NIST staff, add 4 or 5 MITRE staff, combine that with 20, 30, 40 top experts across industry. And we're not just, leveraging your equipment, but we're also leveraging your deep expertise in these areas to kind of work together to address a particular challenge.
Yeah, I mean, what happens in the projects, they create these work streams of focused topics for the project. And it's usually somebody from industry that's taking the lead on that work stream, just because, like you said, the sheer limitation of the NCCoE staff, which they're all phenomenal, they're awesome to work with, and they're very good at promoting not only what NCCoE does, but what we do as technology partners. They're always really good about getting us involved. If they're going to do a panel discussion somewhere on a topic we might be involved in a project with at the center. And it's really a very nice facility. If y'all haven't been there, it's in Rockville, Maryland. It kind of sits all by itself, separate of the NIST campus, so access in is somewhat easier than at NIST. And they've got quite a few labs where every project has its own lab that it works from. And we try to do, now that everybody's back to getting together again, which is nice. We've been doing some of those NCEP meetings in person, either at the center or at one of the collaborators' sites. And we've done some collaboration meetings for like PQC and stuff at the center. So we can actually meet the people that were on these WebExes on a weekly basis. But yeah, I really enjoy working with it, and I've got a lot of great support from within TCT, from my CTO supports us doing these projects. Our integrations team is very involved in, and our SEs in helping to integrate the products. The MITRE folks are really great helping coordinate and getting things up and running in the lab. So it's just it's a real pleasure to work on the projects. It's a lot of fun. It's something outside of the standard everyday kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay, let's go on now that you've heard us talk about it. So I kind of talked a little bit about some of the projects that we're involved in. So right now, TCT is actively involved in 3 projects at NCCoE, which Bill, no more, because it's a lot of WebExes on a daily, weekly basis. Danan's laughing. She's in our integrations team, helps us out at the NCCoE a lot. The first one is addressing visibility challenges with TLS 1.3 within the enterprise. Now, we have a very small role there. There's a lot of other players that are very actively involved. We're really there to provide the HSM as a root of trust. And the thing that's important about these projects, you go to the NCCoE website, you could, search the specific project name, or you just go to the NCCoE website and look at a project, and you'll see any artifacts that have been produced. There's a volume A that's like a high-level overview of what the project is all about. That's good to give to like a C-level person if they're interested. Then there's multiple volumes after that that go into more details about the project. Like with the PQC project, we've got a volume on the interoperability performance testing. There's another volume on data discovery tools. So that's your hands-on guide to kind of see what we've experienced and what we've walked through. A lot of the other guides that are part of the project are actually how-to guides for, installing the product, which sometimes those are old before they're even published because things change with installations. But there's, referenceable materials that you get off of as a result of the project, which is really good. The migration to post-quantum crypto project, we're doing, our HSMs are involved in that. Our high-speed network encryption, which has the post-quantum algorithms in it. We haven't figured out what work stream that's going to fit into yet, but that's certainly a part of that project as well. And like I said, there's a lot of HSM vendors in there. The discovery work stream is, with PQC and that migration effort is like finding where your crypto is, and that discovery effort. And there's quite a few vendors that are coming to market with these discovery tools that can help you find where your crypto's at, so you can produce your inventory that you have to then turn around and give to your government agency to show, hey, this is where my crypto is, and this is what I've got to start looking at migrating. So there's a lot of good guidance in that as well. The third project, and it's kind of slow rolling, but it's starting to move, is a data classification project. And it's all about, data tagging and data, classifying your data. And I think a big part of that will help in the zero trust efforts, where you're trying to, achieve those capabilities that are required in the data pillar of zero trust. But that project's just kind of starting to roll on. But there's a really cool 5G lab. That's like the best one to go look at, because they've got some really cool stuff in the 5G lab. But yeah, there's just a lot of really neat efforts going on there, and although it takes a commitment on industry's part to participate, right? You can't just say, yeah, I want to do it, and then just show up to the meetings. You have to be actively involved, and the more involved you are, the more you get out of it, and the more the project gets out of it. Because I've seen where there's sometimes we're like, is so-and-so on the phone, is so-and-so on the phone every week, and they're not there. But we need them to be actively involved because we're at the point where their piece is important. Mm-hmm. And so when you sign up, you've got to be committed to be actively involved, because you'll get out of it what you put into it, and that's what's really important. So next, moving on.
Yeah, I will say, we have vendors that will sign up, again and again and again. Yeah. I guess they're glutton for punishment, but there is a lot of value in working with us, and we get a lot of value, out of working with these consortia. You talked a little bit about some of the projects there. I just want to underscore, we've got about 30 projects at the center. You mentioned 2 of them on encryption. We run a lot of projects on applied cryptography just because of NIST's expertise in encryption, really helping organizations to implement encryption, identifying specific challenges with transitioning towards new algorithms, such as the PQC migration project that I know you and my colleague Bill Newhouse will talk about later. Yeah. But that's an area of significant focus, for us.
And it's a long term. Like some projects are shorter than others. I think, the cloud project I was on, maybe I was involved in it for 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, but the PQC project is going to be years. And we just re-signed a CRADA for a couple more years because we know it's not going to be over anytime soon. Why do you think those projects are important, and how can you share some of the other projects? You talked some about some of the other projects?
Yeah, so I mean,
Like you did some cool stuff with IoT devices, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, so when you think about all of the work that NIST is in, right, encryption, identity, IoT, privacy, our framework development, and we really try to identify projects where we already have some base level of expertise in them. So you mentioned our 5G security project, which is we have a beautiful 5G network that we've set up at the center. It's really pretty, and we always show it off when we do tours just because of how pretty it is. But from a security perspective, right, we have people that participate in 3GPP's standardization efforts to develop standards for 5G security, right? So we have an underlying base of expertise. We're then working with all of the 5G providers to test those standards through our 5G network, and we're identifying additional security capabilities that might be missing from the 3GPP standards. So obviously those gaps we will then work back through the standards process to fix those gaps for 6G. But that's in the future, right? So we want to make sure right now that any gaps that we're finding, we're then working with, with Nokia, we're working with AT&T, T-Mobile. They're going to now require, that these changes, these security capabilities be built into 5G networks. So we're seeing a lot of progress being made in real time because we're working, in consortia with the right collaborators in the beginning. We're doing the research together. They're then able to take it back and make real improvements, immediately, based off of what we've, found in this particular project.
I don't know about anybody else, but whenever that 5G shows up on your phone, do you have better or worse service than you did when you were running 3G? Because I get so frustrated that it says 5G and I get worse service than I got before, but that's a personal problem. Anyway, so having been, Cheri started as the director at the center in August of 2023. So having been there since August, what are the priorities for the center and any changes for the vision of the center that you have since taking over?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So yeah, as Gina mentioned, I'm new to this role, and I've been having a lot of conversations with stakeholders about where you see, the future of NCCoE. The NCCoE has been around now for 10 years, and as an FFRDC, we are statutorily required to review ourselves every 5 years. So we're actually going through that independent review right now. So on top of me being new and asking a whole bunch of questions on why we do things a certain way, we're also doing a full comprehensive review of the work that we do at the center, and looking at kind of the changes that we might want to make for the next 10 years of the NCCoE. And I've got three, obviously we're going to be in all of the major cybersecurity issues, right? So I'm not going to list, topics that are priorities because you guarantee we will be in all of them, right? If we're going to always, AI, zero trust, ransomware, we've got projects on all of them. My priorities are really looking more strategically at three different areas. One is prioritization. So we have a limited budget. There's only a certain number of projects that we can take on at the center, and we get more ideas than what we can take on. So we're actually looking at our entire project portfolio for areas where we might want to de-scope projects, so that we can really put more attention on areas where we can make the largest impact. And we're spending a lot of time looking at return on investment. So if anybody is an expert, especially for federal agencies, return on investment, how do you know? Like I have 40 engineers at NIST who are the best at what they do. If I'm going to put them on a certain project, I want to know that they're going to make the best use of their time and expertise in that area. So how do we know where we're going to kind of get the biggest bang for our buck? So if anybody's done research in this area, I want to chat with you. The second area is on engagement, and really looking at how we can strengthen our existing collaboration. We've got great collaboration with technology vendors, other federal agencies. Really want to lean into those partners to help us increase awareness of the work that we're doing, like through events like this. We're also going to be looking closely at the outputs that we create to make sure that we're meeting the needs of different audiences of different communities. So you might see some changes to the publication outputs that we have, other types of outputs like tools, events, really just making sure that we're meeting the needs of the communities as we kind of publish out or develop specific work under these projects. And the final one is on measuring impact. NIST, as a measurement agency, can get really into the deep end here on determining measurements for our success. But going back to the prioritization point, we really want to make sure that we're making an impact in the work that we're doing. So we're looking at the different types of metrics that we want to capture, and how we can judge whether we've actually made an impact to a specific cybersecurity issue when we're tackling these different issues in our projects.
I think one of the differences I've seen in the recent projects I've been on is more participation from government agencies and commercial vendors. Like banks are involved in like the TLS project because that visibility into the traffic is important to them, right? So I think that makes the project even stronger when you've got a user of the technology involved in the project to go, hey, yeah, that's what I need, or this is how I do it today. Because we as a vendor might think it's done one way, when really the way it's used out in the world is totally different. And so I think that has helped bring a different perspective to the project by having those types of consumers of the products involved in the project that I didn't see in the first project that I was in.
Yeah.
And having government involved, government is very heavily involved in the PQC project. So we've got like CISAs involved and NSAs involved. So we're getting input from those agencies that are very actively involved in the problem solving aspect of that project as well, which is a little different than the first project that I worked on, which I think is really important, is you've got everybody that's in this together to play that game, I think is really important.
Yeah, and you'll see more of that with every one of our projects. We just launched our water cybersecurity project a few weeks ago. We just did the kickoff meeting. Of course, there's still technology vendors that are participating, but we also have several water utilities, including those that provide water to Montgomery County that we drink at NIST. And so it's great. I mean, they're obviously not going to be providing hardware, software, but they are providing a certain level of expertise to make sure that what we are developing is practical and actionable and fills the needs, that they have.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay, so before coming to NCCoE, you were the lead on the development of the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, and you also participated in the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. Can you share with us your experience with both of those programs and like lessons learned and things like that?
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun working on the update to the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. I had, before becoming NCCoE director, I led that update, and I'm still the co-author of CSF 2.0. We worked with thousands of individuals around the world who shared their expertise with us. So it was really great just to work with the CSF community, people that are using the framework, people that really love the framework, that want to see it, it continue. And I think our first workshop that we had on CSF 2.0 on the update, was a virtual workshop because this was about 2 years ago.
Right.
And we had 8,000 people register
Wow.
for the workshop. And of course, at NIST, we have to pay for everyone that registers, so we were freaking out a little bit. But you know, it's so great to see that level of engagement and
Right.
interest
Especially when you
in.
put all that work into it.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was fantastic, and we really knew we had something special, you know, then, that this was going to be a major update, and that we were going to need to find a way to ensure that the community, you know, felt engaged, because our number one rule anytime we do a major update to a framework is no surprises, right? If you were following along the process, you should be able to guess kind of where CSF 2.0 ended up. And so CSF 2.0 was just published a few weeks ago. It is a major update to the framework. So now our attention is turning towards helping organizations now make that transition to the new version. And the cybersecurity framework, you know, has endured for the past decade. It's still the most widely used framework around the world. It's very much not just US focused, but there's a lot of countries that have adopted it all over, and a number of international companies as well. And so we wanted to make sure that with this new version that we were setting up changes to be able to ensure that CSF 2.0, you know, continues for the next decade. And given how much cybersecurity landscape changes, you know, technologies change so rapidly, it is a significant challenge for us. There's also, you know, when you look at the changes in the regulatory environment, that's another thing that really came up a lot when we were working on the update. In the past, industry was really cautious of the framework being associated with regulations. This time around with the update, we actually had folks in industry saying, well, if we're going to be regulated anyways, can we at least make sure that it's consistent with the framework? And so we started then, NIST started to engage with, you know, federal regulators, serving as technical advisors to the regulator community, and also trying to build that into the update that we saw with the new version. So now that this framework is out, and NIST has lots of other frameworks, right? You mentioned the AI risk management framework. We have the privacy framework, which is the sister framework to the cybersecurity framework. We've got the secure software development framework, which is great for secure development of software. We've got the NICE workforce framework. We've got a lot of frameworks, right? We've got a lot of frameworks, and this is a lot of guidance. So really, I think that's where the NCCoE can play a critical role in showing how to leverage these frameworks, plus how to leverage these frameworks together. So one of the areas that we're going to be focused on is on community profiles, building out sector-specific and technology-specific guidance for both the NIST cybersecurity framework and the privacy framework. We're developing our first profile for the privacy framework on genomics. We're developing the first profile for the secure software framework that's going to be on AI. But also, every one of our projects, you know, PQC, Zero Trust, we're mapping those back to the NIST cybersecurity framework. So when you look at things like Zero Trust, all the principles of Zero Trust will be mapped back to the 6 functions of the cybersecurity framework, as well as mapping the security capabilities of individual products. So you can really see at a high level kind of how the technology that you're leveraging kind of relates back to the kind of holistic cybersecurity risk management strategy that you have within your organization, which I think is pretty cool to be able to kind of move from, you know, really high-level cybersecurity outcomes like cybersecurity governance, risk management, you know, down to, you know, 853 controls, all the way down to the security capabilities found in individual products, and be able to transition, you know, across all of those to see how everything connects.
When you pointed out, you know, globally there was countries involved in it, and that's what I'm seeing in the PQC project. It's a global project. There's companies from all over the world involved. which is pretty cool because you think of NIST and NCCoE as a government agency dictating standards for the government, but they are looked to for guidance from everyone around the world. And I think that shows the impact of what is done at both NIST and NCCoE is that it elevates the attention globally. I was actually able to have one of the NCCoE guys, Mike Bartok, come with me to Toronto to speak at a Toronto's users group that we did several years ago about the Trusted Project. So it's very good at promoting the projects out into the community afterwards.
Yeah, and we have just about every week, we have a different foreign government come to the center to meet with us. And all of this is informal, right? Because we're NIST.
Right.
We'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see, you know, the level of engagement that we have with different countries around the world.
Yeah. So last but not least, this is something that's very important to both Cheri and myself. I've been in the IT industry for over 30 years, and the last 14 have been in cybersecurity. I knew nothing about encryption and key management when I came to this company. I was an application database development backgrounded person, and they needed somebody that understood that to explain to customers why they need to protect their data. So I have been learning cybersecurity every day since I got here, and still continue to learn. But as I transitioned from application database development to the cybersecurity field, I noticed a significant gap in women in cyber versus women in IT. However, anyone in the IT field knows that we need more women in technology. And I've got some statistics on this. In 2022, 25% of cybersecurity jobs globally were held by women. And that's up from 20% in 2019 and around 10% in 2013. There's a cybersecurity ventures group that predicts women will represent 30% of the global cybersecurity workforce by 2025, increasing to 35% by 2031. So that's great. But as a woman in cyber, as I am, and quite oftentimes we can be the only woman in the room, which I say is my superpower, because they're going to remember me, and I'm not going to remember half of you guys in the room, just honestly, quite honestly. Can you share some of your experiences with women in cyber and IT and what we can do to bridge that gap?
Yeah, so this is an issue that's really important to me, and I really, if anybody's interested in helping, you know, Gina and me solve this issue, please come chat with us, because I think we just got the 2-minute mark.
Yeah.
But, you know, both Gina and I have fought to be here, and we still continue to fight every day, right? Women have to be smarter, stronger, have more connections, and in, you know, especially as I have kind of advanced in my career, the more my profile has increased, the more criticism that I've faced. And I won't, because of lack of time, I won't give specific examples, but you know, it's kind of a daily occurrence for me to see certain criticism of me and my work. I think one area that I've taken at the center is I've put in place a no manel rule for all of the events at NCCoE. For those that don't know the term manel, it means no all male panels. But you know, I think that we really need to have increased visibility of women leaders in cybersecurity so that others can see that that is a field that's kind of open to you. And it's not hard to find really brilliant women who are great at speaking on these topics. It's really easy to just add some of your colleagues to the panel. And I think that increased visibility is just really important to be able to just show to, you know, especially folks that are earlier in their career, that are just starting out, that this field is open to anyone. I mean, at NIST, we really want, as a research institution, we need people that think differently, folks from different backgrounds, to be able to do the type of innovative work that we do. So it's certainly a priority for me to increase the diversity of my teams and also call on all of you to do the same. to be able to kind of fix the challenges that we're seeing today.
Yeah, I had a VP of sales tell me one time that I was not a screwdriver engineer because I like to solve customers' problems. But I was like, you know what you don't know is I have a whole set of screwdrivers in my briefcase, and I've racked and stacked equipment all over this country. So your perception of me as a person that likes to solve problems and is more solutions selling oriented than, you know, widgets and bits and bytes and stuff, I mean, I took offense to that, but that just fueled my fire to do more, right? And so I think that I thank you for, this was Cheri's idea to do this as a fireside chat rather than her just up here talking, because she wanted to show two strong women in cybersecurity presenting to you today, and I thank you for that, and I've had a pleasure chatting with you today, and I hope you all have gained a lot of insight into the NCCoE and the great work that they do. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Gina.